Thank you so much. Namaskar. Good morning here in Washington, D.C. It's 10:40 in the morning. Good evening to everyone in India. Many of you are either connected with me on the social media or have read and heard about what I've said in the past. So I want to thank all of them who follow me. And I would like to thank everyone who is here in the room showing interest in Gilgit-Baltistan. Gilgit-Baltistan is part of India that is in Pakistani occupation. It was part of the former princely state of Jammu and Kashmir. On August the 5th, the constitutional amendment that the current regime brought bifurcated Jammu and Kashmir and converted the princely state into two union territories, Ladakh and Jammu and Kashmir. And Gilgit-Baltistan had been put with Ladakh because of its historical, cultural, and geographical connection with Ladakh. Baltistan used to be part of Ladakh district before partition. Gilgit was its own district. So right now, the 1.5 district that Pakistan occupied in 1947 have evolved and spread into 10 districts with a population of about 1.5 million. The people who live in Gilgit-Baltistan, they pretty much live in the valleys of 3 major mountain ranges, the Himalayas, the Karakoram, and the Hindu Kush. And they all meet at a place called Bunji, where the Indus River flows through Gilgit and enters and runs towards Pakistan. Major rivers are Ashok River and Indus River that come from Ladakh and partly from Tibet, in Chinese-occupied Tibet. Other major rivers are Shigar, Gilgit, Hunza, and Astor rivers, which originate in Gilgit-Baltistan. Gilgit-Baltistan provides about 50% of Pakistan's water needs, so it is abundant with glacial lakes, and one of the, they call the third pole in the world after the North and South Pole. So it is pretty much like 90% of its land is covered with mountains and snow. Our villages are anywhere between 4 to 10,000 feet high from the sea level. People mostly depend on subsistence farming, daily wage labor, tourism, and then government jobs. Non-profit organizations are also picking up, but most of the time it is the government which keeps Gilgit-Baltistan on subsistence and handouts. So people depend on grants coming from Islamabad. The ethnic groups are very diverse. There are about at least, I would say, 6 or 7 major ethnic groups that came from all different parts of the world and blended in Gilgit-Baltistan. Some of them came from Central Asia, like the Wakhis, the Tajik, the Scythians, the Sogdians, and some of them came from Tibet, like the Baltis. Some of them came from Central Asia, like the Parthians, and many people who call themselves Mughal. Some of them came from Central India, like the Domakis, who live in along the Gilgit and Hunza River. Then there are Dardik people who came from Kashmir and adjoining areas in India, like Sheen and Khwar and Yashkun. So it's a big blend of people. They have come together. They speak very, distinct languages, not really related to each other, which improves our diversity, but at the same time brings challenges in our unity in bringing people on the same platform when it comes to political and cultural rights. So you will hear people speaking ancient Persian, Tibetan dialects, Dardic languages, as well as nowadays there are settlers who are coming from Pakistan. They speak Hinko and Kohistani and Pashto and Punjabi and so and so. Their population is growing in urban areas of Gilgit-Baltistan, like Gilgit City, Skardu City, Gakuch. The Amir district is heavily attacked, I would say, by the settlers. Settlement ratio is probably more than 100% in the Amir. Most of the land have been taken over by the Amir. In the Amir by the settlers. This is the same place where the Amir Dam will be constructed. So the land is very valuable, and government is giving land compensation there to the people who live there. So many people from Pakistan, especially from district Kohistani, are encroaching on the Amir and trying to claim residence there. Now, Gilgit-Baltistan, as we are here, we're not just talking because it's some kind of interesting place. We have a clear agenda, and the agenda is that Gilgit-Baltistan belongs to India. It's a legal part of India. It's a constitutional part of India. And because it has been separated from India, the local people have been deprived of constitutional and political rights and cultural identity for the last 70 years. It is in the interest of Gilgit-Baltistan that it should be reunited with India. And that's what we all believe, and we have come together here to talk about that. So I will talk in that context how Gilgit-Baltistan was separated from India. So in the United India, Gilgit-Baltistan was part of the princely state of Jammu and Kashmir. And Jammu and Kashmir, after deliberation, the ruler of Jammu and Kashmir, he was reluctant to get into a political collaboration with either Prime Minister Nehru or with the Pakistani leadership till there was an attack from Pakistan in the name of Gulmarg operation and the Takhel operation, and these operations were managed by the military leadership residing in Rawalpindi and Peshawar. And they attacked Gilgit, and then they also attacked not Baltistan, but Gilgit was attacked in 1947, right after British decided that states were to accede to either India or Pakistan. And because of that attack, and many invaders who were Pashtun tribals, they were able to reach Baramulla and ahead, and they were trying to capture Srinagar, and the ruler of Jammu and Kashmir finally realized that it was not possible for him to not get into any kind of political union and stay autonomous. So he finally made up his mind. He went to Prime Minister Nehru. Prime Minister Nehru came up with this condition that he has to accede before India would help Jammu and Kashmir militarily. He took the ruler of Jammu and Kashmir took some time. He came back and he acceded to India. So now, two things that we need to know right now is, first of all, the accession to India is final. Secondly, the accession letter that was submitted to India is one of the strongest legal documents that have established relationship with Jammu and Kashmir with India. And also, the letter of accession that was signed with free will. Prime Minister Nehru gave the rule of Jammu go to Pakistan if he wanted. So he made a choice without any force. And these are the important information that we all know. And at the time that Jammu and Kashmir acceded to India, Gilgit-Baltistan were very much part of. of Jammu and Kashmir. As I said, Gilgit was a district, and the parts which were rented to British for military purposes had already been returned to the Maharaja. Baltistan was part of Ladakh district. It was a tehsil at that time. So these were integral parts of Jammu and Kashmir, and that's how we all became Indian citizens. And then because of the accession, after that, attacks happened, invasion happened, the Takhel operation, Gulmarg operation, and eventually case was taken to the United Nations, and a ceasefire line was drawn between India and Pakistan's controlled parts, and that's where pretty much the line of control is today, where Gilgit-Baltistan stays on the west side of line of control and occupied by Pakistan, and some parts of Punj and Jammu province and Muzaffarabad and Kishan-Ganga Valley of Kashmir province went into Pakistani occupation. Again, something that is really important that we should be reminded is that Prime Minister Nehru did not take the case to the United Nations saying, I'm here to fight for the rights of the Kashmiris, or to know about the will of the Kashmiris, or to ensure autonomy for Kashmir, rights for Kashmir. That was not the purpose of taking the case to United Nations. It's a legal document, and we should be very clear about the motives and intentions of India taking the case to the United Nations. The case was taken to United Nations stating that Pakistan has invaded Indian land. Gilgit-Baltistan and Mirpur and other areas belong to India, and Pakistan must withdraw from these areas. So this is what the original shape of the document looked like when it was taken to the United Nations. In the United Nations, obviously, they came up with this agreement with India, Pakistan. Everybody signed saying Pakistan must withdraw. It was given a certain time period to withdraw. Pakistan has failed to withdraw. It has been not only increasing totalitarian approach towards the issue and tightening control over local land and resources, but also converting local people into minority by demographic changes and bringing in Pakistanis and settling them along the Karakoram Highway and along the Indus River since 1970s. So this case stayed with the United Nations for about 10 years. 1957, I think the United Nations kind of gave up because Pakistan was refusing to withdraw. From that time all the way to 1970s, there was not much attention paid to Gilgit-Baltistan. We didn't have a land route with Pakistan at that time, so it was only connected by air, a strip in Skardo. Food droppings and other ration were brought in by airlines, and in 1970s the Pakistani military realized the importance of relationship with China, and they decided to go ahead with building roads with China. And before that, they gave some parts of Gilgit-Baltistan to China called Shaskam Valley and Raskam and Aghil Valley, and some parts towards Afghanistan and Tajikistan's border. So there was already an agreement with China to construct a road that will connect China with Pakistan through Xinjiang and Gilgit-Baltistan. Both of them are occupied areas. And since then, Pakistan have been promising the people of Gilgit-Baltistan with constitutional rights, with a promise of converting Gilgit-Baltistan into a province of Pakistan. They have been luring people of Gilgit-Baltistan into allowing China and Pakistan exploit the region at their own whim. Now, Gilgit-Baltistan is as many of you know, but some probably do not know, it is in extreme north of Pakistan. It is connected with China and Afghanistan by border, and there is about 9-mile wide strip of Afghanistan that separates Gilgit-Baltistan from Tajikistan and rest of Central Asia and Russia. So if you are aware of Iran-India relations, you would know that India is dependent on Iran to use its ports. And the reason why it wants to use its ports, because it eventually wants to get to Central Asia. The purpose is to get to Turkmenistan, Uzbekistan, and other Tajikistan, and other states which are abundant with natural resources. But if you look at the geography in India, Gilgit-Baltistan could have provided that link directly with Afghanistan and Tajikistan, and India would not have been dependent on Iran for such a long time if history had taken a different turn. So nowadays we all know that India and the United States are trying to improve their relationship. We have a very longer lasting mutual vision, which is that collaboration with India and the United States is extremely important to maintain a social order and sustain democratic values and forces and openness and freedom of social values, and we see China as a threat trying to change that order. The Japanese, the Australians, the Europeans, all are on the same page with India and the United States when it comes to how we can protect our social freedoms and democracies and open markets in the world by working with each other. But at the same time, we also know that Iran has always been this stumbling block where when India-US relationship moves a step forward, it moves 2 or 3 steps backward. So this to and from motion in this scenario is because of Iran, and obviously other reasons also, but Iran is one of the major players there. And this dependency on Iran is there again because Gilgit-Baltistan is not physically linked to India right now. So imagine if Gilgit-Baltistan had linked physical links with India and provided all these connections and transit facility to India, to Afghanistan, Tajikistan, and the rest of Central Asia. Our relationship with the United States would have been very different today because there wouldn't be so much dependency on Iran. So you can understand that Gilgit-Baltistan is extremely important for India, not just because it is culturally linked to India, it's a historical part of India, it's about national pride, it is also about the future of India for the next thousands of years of prosperity and sustainability, and the protection of the social values and the democracies that we are talking about. So having India with Gilgit-Baltistan is mutually beneficial because people in Gilgit-Baltistan also think that if our languages and our cultures and our identities to be protected, India is a better option than Pakistan. If as Shias or Ismailis we are to be protected, India is a better option than Pakistan. So we are pretty much on the same page. If our local natural resources are to be used for local development, India is a better option. If we are to benefit from cultural enhancement and linkages with Central Asia, India is a better option. So I think given India's own strategic needs, given Gilgit-Baltistan's own local needs, this is a great chance that nature or the circumstances or the times have offered to us, that we need to work together to eventually physically reunite, so we all could benefit from each other. Right now, the human rights situation in Gilgit-Baltistan is pretty grim. I would say that Pakistan physically occupied Gilgit-Baltistan, but it never incorporated Gilgit-Baltistan into its constitutional framework. So we have been living in Gilgit-Baltistan as quote-unquote part of Pakistan without any political benefits, without any judicial benefits, without any cultural benefits. I mean, there are 3 or 4 things that I would mention that you would realize how grim the situation is. First of all, we're not allowed to vote in Pakistan. So after 70 years, local people are still living how people in rest of the world used to live like 200 years ago when there were no voting rights for people. no right to choose their own political representatives. Even before this whole system of democracy started in India or Greece or in Latin part of Europe. So that's how archaic and colonial the structure is. We cannot access Pakistani Supreme Court as constitutional citizens of Pakistan. So there's no way that local people could get justice the way Pakistani citizens get. We have no control over our land and resources. We cannot really have a say in the national economic and financial institutions which make these decisions on exploitation of resources and relationship with our neighbors like China and Afghanistan. We are not allowed to learn about our own history in Gilgit-Baltistan. It is completely banned for local people to learn about our own history. So what we learn is history of Punjab. What happened, to the districts of Punjab along the Grand Trunk Road, as we know, GT Road, in the north of Punjab, where the Mughals and the Khiljis and Tughlaqs and Lodhis, these people who terrorized the local people and invaded the local people and raped the local people, and this is how they glorify the history of Punjab and teach to people of Gilgit-Baltistan. We are banned from learning our own languages. We have to learn languages that like Urdu, that came from UP, Bihar and Hyderabad in India, or languages like, most of the time, we are completely glued to Pakistani television, so whatever they throw at us is what our kids grow up learning and being exposed to. So these are a few things that what I've mentioned shows how helpless and hand-tied the people of Gilgit-Baltistan are. And they have no hope because Pakistan cannot really provide the benefits to the constitutional rights, the rights of a citizen to people of Gilgit-Baltistan, because we became Indian citizens. So only Pakistan can only enjoy physical control over us, and this is a very bad match. And that's why we are campaigning for such a long time that we need to be part of India. Pakistan must withdraw from Gilgit-Baltistan, as the United Nations asked Pakistan 70 years ago. Now, we have a local structure in Gilgit-Baltistan. They do not have the right to I think आप सबको म्यूट कर दीजिए मोनिका जी
जी
if you mute everyone क्योंकि I hear people talking, maybe some televisions are on in the background.
Rahul ji, can you?
Okay, Monica ji, can you hear me? Okay. So the local structure is non-constitutional. So local people are, for instance, their government is not chosen by them. They are not allowed to develop their own budget. They live on grants from Islamabad. The chief minister is appointed by the people in Kashmir affairs in Islamabad, not by the local people. Even the cabinet members of the chief minister are appointed by Islamabad. So he doesn't have, or the assembly does not have the right to choose the cabinet members. The financial situation, the governance structure is pretty much like a colonial structure where someone called Minister of Kashmir Affairs, who is always a Pakistani, it cannot be someone from Gilgit-Baltistan, he can or she cannot be someone from POK. Right now we have a Pashtun, Amin Gandapur, who is the Minister for Kashmir Affairs, and he is dealing with Gilgit-Baltistan. I think at some point they changed the minister, but I don't know the name of if they have changed and brought in a new person. But it is always a Punjabi or a Pashtun, never a Baloch, sometime maybe a Sindhi. Maybe there was probably one Sindhi or two Sindhis so far in 70 years, but mostly it is Punjabis who come and rule us. So Kashmir Affairs is a ministry, is a cabinet position in the federal government, in the union government in Islamabad. And they deal with Gilgit-Baltistan and Mirpur and Muzaffarabad. And they have absolute authority, including appointment of judicial management and judicial council and the chief justice in Gilgit-Baltistan. These are all politically motivated appointments, and they serve the interest of Pakistan. They are the long arms of Pakistani establishment, Pakistani military. The local highway, which is called Karakoram Highway, for instance, it is a private property of Pakistani military. There's a Pakistani military organization called FWO, Frontier Works Organization. They literally own Karakoram Highway. So they cannot have people from Gilgit-Baltistan managing it and enjoying the tolls on it, for instance, enjoying the transit fees on it. The custom with China and Gilgit-Baltistan, again, it is controlled by Islamabad. All the earnings go there. The local people in Gilgit-Baltistan have no say in how to use that money that comes from the transit fee or the check post and the customs and immigration. So basically, Gilgit-Baltistan is treated like a colony, living on handouts for 70 years. When the money dries up, they call Islamabad, and Islamabad sends some more money, and they keep it at a very at a subsistence level. So the British had this policy in Bengal when they invaded Bengal and made it part of their empire and established East India Company, is that never give enough to people of Bengal, or they will revolt. They will rebel against the British. So this is the same policy that Pakistan has towards Gilgit-Baltistan. Keep them at bare minimum, give them just subsistence living. We do not have any colleges. We do not have any polytechnic institutes, medical colleges, engineering colleges. And this is done with a design to keep people dependent on educational institutions and colleges and universities in Pakistan. In the same way, there's a quota system that has been established for Gilgit-Baltistan, and students, they go to Pakistan to different universities. This way, they most probably will take up jobs outside Gilgit-Baltistan. This is a way of changing local demography, where people are forced to take up jobs and educational and needs in outside Gilgit-Baltistan. Most of the local jobs are now being given to the Pakistanis. So I was talking to my Kashmiri friends the other day in Jammu, and I was telling them that now even the middle level bureaucratic jobs like police inspector or assistant commissioner or tehsildar, these jobs are also being awarded to people from Pakistan. So local people, educated people, they have no way but to leave Gilgit-Baltistan and find jobs in other parts of the country. And this is a way to change demography. Religiously, Gilgit-Baltistan is very diverse. I mean, most of the people affiliate with different sects or different denominations that can be clumped together, coupled together as Shia, for instance. So there are 12er Shias, there are Ismailis, Nizari Ismailis in India, probably they're called Aga Khanis. We have Sufi Nur Bakshis, which are also 12er Sufis. We have Hamadanis, which are also 12er Sufis. So we have different groups that are lumped together as Shia, and they make up about 70 to 75% of the population. I would say now their population is dwindling, so I think the last estimate, there are no real census in Gilgit-Baltistan because the information is not shared with others. It is an information that remains with Pakistani military. Civilian regimes are not allowed to share information on the statistical information about Gilgit-Baltistan with the outside world. So we always do estimates about how many Shias live there, what is the local population, what is the population of the settlers, how many people speak how many languages. This is all an estimate that we do. I would say I totally lost the track of, yeah. So religiously, I would say now the number of people, local people, since it is coming down, demography is changing. So obviously the number of the Sunnis, which are especially the settler Sunnis coming from Pakistan, their number is increasing. So I would say the settlers are now anywhere between 30 to 35% of the total population. And I would say that is pretty much how, I'm sorry, the Sunni population is anywhere between 30 to 35% of the total population, and most of them are settlers. Local Sunni population before settlement started in the 1960s, I would say 50s and 60s, was anywhere between 10 to 15%. So 80 to 85% were either Shias or Ismailis or Hamadanis or Nur Bakshis. We do not have any non-Muslim population there, Hindus or Buddhist. If there were any Buddhist, I would say they probably moved to Ladakh during or before 1971. Hindu population mostly were forced out of Gilgit-Baltistan in 1947-48. Many of them were converted, forcefully converted. Local women were raped. I mean, the situation is pretty much the same as it happened in Mirpur, or I would say in Punjab, in Bengal, and other parts where people were forced to convert. The religious composition keeps changing. Pakistan is very insecure about Shias living in an area which is the only land linked with China. They want this land to be secure. They want the connection with China to be completely in control. So that's why what they do is they try to bring settlers and settle them along the Karakoram Highway, which connects Pakistan with China through Gilgit. Chinese settlers have also arrived in Gilgit-Baltistan. Many Uyghurs who are sympathetic to Chinese regime, they live in Gilgit-Baltistan. They all work as long arms of China. They have established hotels and restaurants and other businesses. A lot of Chinese goods, they come from Xinjiang and other parts of China into Gilgit-Baltistan. So Pakistanis have established shops there, especially in Gilgit city and Skardud city. In Gakut city, for instance, we have large markets which are owned or operated by Pakistanis and the Chinese, and they sell Chinese products. So our demography is changing. Shia population is declining, and then there's an element of massacres and genocide as Pakistani militants and terrorists, which are operated and funded and financed and trained by Pakistani military. They often attack local Shias. You have heard news about Shias riding in buses were driven out, and after identifying with their names and flagellation marks, they were killed at gunpoint range. They were shot and killed. There were buses which were burned, and Shias were burned alive in there, just like what happened in Gujarat, for instance. There were instances when Shia neighborhoods were attacked, Shia leaders were attacked. In 2008, when the local leader Ziauddin was killed, there was a curfew for more than 6 months, and I think more than about 150 people lost lives in target killing during that time. In 1988, a genocide happened and thousands of people were killed and displaced. Several villages were burned when Pakistani terrorists attacked. Local people claim the number of attackers anywhere between 20,000 all the way to 80,000. So they were attacked because Pakistani military provided them with weapons and money and food and vehicles. And Pakistani military general like General Aziz, he was leading that operation, and Major Aslam, and there were other military officials who were very much out there, leading the operation and asking local Shias to convert if they wanted to be alive. Our girls were gang raped and abducted and taken. I think more than 100 girls were abducted and taken by the terrorists when they were fleeing and returning after the massacre. The massacre started on May the 16th in 1988. So in this month, in 1988, and on May 27th, After 10 or 11 days, it ended because the local people said we will go to India and ask Indian help and unite with India. So there were other instances in 2012, for instance, in 2008 and 9, when massacres happened. There were times when Shias used to have weapons and they could defend themselves, but now Pakistani military, through different operations, they have taken away all the weapons from locals. So about 2 or 3 years ago, there was a major military operation in Gilgit-Baltistan in the month of Ramadan. So you all know that in the month of Ramadan, people usually stay at home, especially the men. They stay at home. They wake up at night to eat food before they start fasting. So that was the time at like 2 or 3 in the middle of the night when the military would start their operation and arrest people who had guns and take away their guns. So now people are completely defenseless. So because of all these socioeconomic and religious and cultural persecution and attacks, physical attack and strategic attack from Pakistan and China, and resource thievery, and lack of opportunities in job and education and others, people they protest. And Pakistan, China, they don't take the protest very favorably. They arrest people. They call them terrorists. They call them traitors. They put them in jail. There are at least 12 or 13 local who have been given life sentence because of that. You all know that. And most of them are obviously Shias. These attacks, they happen because Pakistan does not want the local people to talk about their rights. They do not want local people to communicate to the rest of the world. So that's why it is important for people like me to stay outside and be able to communicate to the rest of the world about what's going on in Gilgit-Baltistan. Right now there's a complete censorship on media in Gilgit-Baltistan. Local media cannot publish anything without approval from ISI. Pakistani military has increased its strength in Gilgit-Baltistan in the name of providing security to CPAC. And the Chinese military is always there in different forms, either being part of the engineering corps or being part of the construction team. So local people, they are losing this battle because they do not have international support. They do not have a clear understanding. I mean, a lot of people ask whether they want to be part of India or not, and I tell them that this information about their relationship with India, how strong this relationship is very fresh for them. It's new for them. 10 or 15 or 20 years ago, there was no mention of India. India was only mentioned by Pakistani media when Shia killings happened, and Pakistani media used to blame India for Shia killings. So local people thought, they're killing the Shias. Then people start realizing that India claims Gilgit-Baltistan and India wants Gilgit-Baltistan, so they had no idea about the legal relationship with India. And slowly they start learning. And now, at this point, in the last year or two, then they realize that the legal relationship with India is so strong that after 70 years, Pakistan has not been able to make Gilgit-Baltistan its constitutional part because it's a constitutional part of India. So I think the youth are thinking Gilgit-Baltistan's relationship with India in a very different manner. They think that it's a real relationship. They think it's a very strong relationship. Whether they want to be part of India or not, they're not really sure about that. They're still learning about it. But there are so many people who think India is better because of how Pakistan is treated. You cannot expect farmers and daily wage labor and people from, lower part of the social strata to have that kind of strategic thinking. Obviously, that strategic thinking will come from a very small number of people who have understanding of politics and history and stuff. And these people are slowly changing. So, I mean, you can see that in the last several years, these people have started calling Pakistan an occupier and calling their relationship with Jammu and Kashmir a reality. I mean, this is a big development that they call themselves part of Jammu and Kashmir. and they're saying that we should have dialogue with India. Let's see, where it leads us, where it takes us to. So I think these are the new things that are happening in Gilgit-Baltistan. As far as India is concerned, India is on the right track. India is claiming Gilgit-Baltistan. The claim is very forceful. It's not just verbal rhetoric. It is changing. It's becoming, practical. It's becoming physical. The change in, for instance, the map on Google. Somebody said, I've seen it since last year that when you go to India, Google has to show Gilgit-Baltistan as integral part of India. Now they are reporting since the last couple of years, Doordarshan was reporting Chitral and Gilgit weather, and I think this is becoming, something that probably the private channels will also start doing now. I think India should offer people of Gilgit-Baltistan, Mirpur and Muzaffarabad representation in their parliament, in the Lok Sabha, Rajya Sabha, in Kashmir Assembly. Kashmir Assembly does not apply to Gilgit anymore because we are part of Ladakh. Ladakh does not have an assembly. So people of Mirpur and Muzaffarabad should get representation in the Kashmir Assembly. And they have two-tier assembly. There's a council and there's a local legislative assembly. So I think they should get representation in both. People of Ladakh, since they do not have assembly, or Gilgit-Baltistan, they could have representation in the Rajya Sabha or Lok Sabha. I think our physical relationship would need to be enhanced. The international community need to be made aware of it. And United States, in Europe, in Japan, and all these different countries, they need to be made aware of how important it is for India and Gilgit to be united for the long-term benefits, mutual benefits of the people here as well as the international community. China is a totalitarian regime. It's a regime masked as communist, but in the end, it is a country run by dictators, just like North Korea. China does not believe in democratic values. You can imagine that China has made so much money. It has improved its economy to the point that today it's the second largest economy as per GDP in the world. With that much money, you would expect that China will democratize its institutions in its society and stuff, but you won't see that happening. So China has no interest in respecting and letting the rest of the world introduce democracy to its outskirts. China wants to rule its own country and rest of the world like a colony, like how colonial structure works. That's what it's doing in Africa. That's what it's doing in Tajikistan and Myanmar and other countries where it is, in Cambodia, where it's appropriating their resources without giving them democratic, benefits. So I think that is what China is going to do with Gilgit-Baltistan. So we believe that India need to communicate to that international community that it's extremely important for Gilgit to be part of India for the mutual benefit of the local people in the rest of the world. I will probably stop here. I think I've been talking for more than 40 minutes now. So thank you so much once again for inviting me. Jai Hind.